Good morning, I'm Melissa Harris-Perry. And last night's presidential debate was the 8th time we've seen the top contenders for the Republican nomination square off on a national stage. The last before Tuesday's New Hampshire primary, but the first since the Iowa caucuses shifted and reshuffled the field of contenders. So in some ways, it was like watching them debate for the very first time. Gone was the undercard of low polling also-rans. We bid farewell to dropouts Rand Paul, Mike Huckabee, and Rick Santorum. Bye, guys. And other low pollers still in it to win it. Carly Fiorina and Jim Gilmore, they just didn't make the cut for the stage. But making Saturday night's debate a prime time to reorder the politics of the 2016 race. And that seems to be precisely what happened as the GOP governors came out swinging from the opening bell and unrelentingly pursued the senators, the doctors, and the erstwhile reality TV hosts throughout the night.
For anybody who's here tonight, if I get elected president, head out tomorrow and buy a seatbelt, because there's going to be so much happening in the first 100 days. It's going to make your head spin, and we're going to move America forward. I promise you, we're going to move us forward.
The shame is that you would actually criticize somebody for showing up to work, plowing the streets, getting the trains run back on time, when you've never been responsible for that in your entire life.
What Donald Trump did was use eminent domain to try to take the property of an elderly woman on the Strip in Atlantic City. That is not public purpose. That is downright wrong. To turn this into a limousine parking lot for his casinos is not a public use.
Yes, it was revenge of the governors. After all, the Republican Party currently controls 31 governor seats in this country. And until the election of then-Senator Barack Obama back in 2008, American voters had shown a pretty strong preference for electing governors to the White House. See, governors are supposed to be the adults, the ones with the real policy positions, clear cross-party constituencies, and a record of tough executive decisions. Look at what happens when Donald Trump is asked about the divide between law enforcement and communities of color.
I'm telling you that not only me speaking, minorities all over the country, they respect the police of this country, and we have to give them more respect. They can't act. They can't act. They're afraid for losing their pension, their job. They don't know what to do.
Oh, okay. But then Governor John Kasich of Ohio weighed in with this.
I created a big collaborative in Ohio made up of law enforcement, community leaders, the head of my public safety, and a former Democrat liberal state senator, Nina Turner, run it. They got together. They made recommendations on recruiting, on hiring, on the use of deadly force. And what we're about to do is to bring community and police together so we can have a win-win.
See the difference? Kasich saying specific things, talking about, you know, Nina Turner. So with the Republican governors pushing back hard against the upstart outsiders, has the force finally awakened in the GOP establishment? Joining me now are Boris Epshteyn, who is a Republican strategist and former communications aide with the McCain-Palin campaign. Elise Jordan, who is NBC News and MSNBC political analyst and a former senior advisor for policy with the Rand Paul campaign. Basil Smilke, who is executive director of the New York State Democratic Party, and Christopher Borg, who is professor of political science and director of the Muhlenberg College Institute of Public Opinion. So, Boris, I got to tell you, Kasich was showing to me last night why governors typically win the U.S. presidency.
Kasich, Bush, and Christie all had a very good night. There's no question about it. I thought Christie on the attack on Rubio really showed why he's a strong executive, showed that power that he has about him, which I think is very attractive to voters in New Hampshire and beyond. Kasich, he knows his stuff, right? He was in Congress for a long time. He'll be the first to tell you all about the Kasich claim. He knows his stuff. There's no question about it. But I thought Trump still won the debate. Even beyond all that, Trump leading, he didn't do anything to hurt himself. And some of the answers he gave in particular, I thought actually on the police he was good. And then he did give more details on immigration, gave more details on the economy. So while the governors were good, Trump was still the best.
At least do you agree with that?
I do disagree with that. I think that Christie's moment with Rubio, if these debates actually matter, it could potentially break the race open, just because Rubio was ordained as the establishment pick after his momentum in Iowa. And Christie just demolished him with what Christie's message has been all week, that Rubio sticks to canned talking points, that he is a Republican version of Obama. And Christie just hammered that point home in a brutal
Obama
way.
got elected to the presidency twice, though. I mean, so even if one dislikes President Obama, I just want to point out, like,
for the Republican Party, that's a bad thing.
No, I get it, but from an electoral standpoint, I will just point out that even to make that claim is still a bit of an odd one from an electability. But part of what you said there, Lisa, I think is useful, is you said if these debates matter. And so part of what I'm interested in is, the Granite State primary voters are famously late deciders. So does this debate matter? Not just for the kind of the national audience that is watching, but for the actual New Hampshire primary?
Yeah, that's the point, Melissa, last night. If you're looking at it, and just think, if you're giving Rubio some consideration, you're one of those moderate voters in New Hampshire, and you're giving him a really good look, and you're thinking electability, and you see that performance last night. Are you really going to move from Kasich? Are you really going to move from Bush? You're going to move from Christie, given what you saw from Marco Rubio last night? I think that's
absolutely.
I don't know.
But my question is, do you move from one of those outsiders to a Kasich? Like, so this must.
Like
yeah, I do. No, I have to say, like, I feel like, I just want my country to have a grown-up in the presidency, and so even though I'm not a Republican, I got to say, I want strong candidates on both sides, and Kasich makes me feel like, okay, good, I could just, like, if he got elected, okay, I mean, I'm not going to agree, but I feel like.
This is a guy who, even in his home state, bucked the Republican Party by expanding Medicare under the Affordable Care Act, which a lot of Republican governors did not do. So I do think of that group, he is a grown-up.
So Kasich is the Democrats' favorite Republican.
Yeah, well, probably.
He's an actual grown-up. He's an actual grown-up. He's not the one insulting the audience in New Hampshire.
Well, who is the only person that you're talking about is Donald Trump. But again,
who you said won the debate.
He did win the debate. He didn't do anything to hurt him. It hurt himself. And you'll see in the polls, I mean, he's been leading by 20 points as it is. The tracking poll will continue to show that. You only have 2 days. He didn't do anything to take votes away. Now,
does Trump actually have to win New Hampshire, though? So here, I thought that sort of what Trump did in Iowa, like, so coming in second and then not giving a very strong concession speech, right? There's ways to give concession speeches, and he didn't kind of come out and do his, I was second, but I'm about to take this. He kind of came out and was like, all right, peace, I'm out, bye. Does he need to actually, like, win decisively in New Hampshire in order to keep going?
He doesn't need to win, but he will win.
Absolutely has to win in New Hampshire because the loser narrative with Trump will really start to set in, and that is a narrative that is repellent to his followers. To him, it brings out the absolute worst in him.
That's true.
We're talking about 2 days in advance.
And you look at Iowa, he made a lot of tactical errors in the run-up to Iowa. He didn't have a strong ground organization. He thought he could just cruise through on the strength of his polls. He didn't do the debate, and he has
the
learned
debate probably
that
did hurt him, and he said that the debate could have hurt him. But we're talking about him losing.
The non-debate, the Fox News debate that he didn't do.
And he said that it could have hurt him, it could have not. He said he'd do it all over again the same way, which, he talked about the $6 million for veterans and all that. Now, we're talking about him losing. He's up 20 points in the latest tracking poll. He may lose.
But the electorate's 40%. But the electorate's 40% independent.
South Carolina, well, he's still leading by a lot. And now everything we're talking about so far with Rubio being hurt, we haven't talked at all about what hurt Trump. Maybe that exchange in eminent domain, but that's inside baseball.
But I think the electorate comes into play. But I think the electorate comes into play.
It's actually a big issue in New Hampshire because they have their own eminent. It's a big rallying cry.
But it hasn't hurt him in the polls one bit.
And go to be on the polls for just a second. It's part of why I want you at the table. So what does that 40% undecided mean? Are those, given how well-known a commodity Mr. Trump is at this point, are those 40% folks who are likely to break for Mr. Trump late?
The New Hampshire undecideds in many ways are really undecided, unlike a lot of the people we polled that aren't. There's movement, and we've seen this traditionally in the polls in New Hampshire, lots of movement at the end, sometimes some surprises. Now, as Boris said, that's a big
huge gap to cover.
To close in a short period of time.
If you look from a voter who is not, as zeroed in as we all are, right? In New Hampshire, you take a step back and you look at what Donald Trump did. And again, talk about police, talk about foreign policy. He is the one that came out the strongest. He didn't maybe dive into all the details like Kasich did, but he's the one that said, when you elect me, I'm going to lead this country and we're going to do well. And that is very attractive to the voter.
You know whose name we did not say one time in this blog? The guy who supposedly won Iowa, Ted Cruz. Did he manage to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory? Also, last night, the candidates that we were asked a very important prediction. Who do they think will win today's Super Bowl?